It was only the second night of auditions on Saturday, but my next guest, she has already bounced through to the Britain's Got Talent semi-final after winning KSI's Golden Buzzer.
Stacey Leadbeatter stunned Britain's Got Talent audiences and earned a Golden Buzzer moment after performing just once before at a local pub. The 29-year-old supermarket worker's powerful performance of Run secured her spot in the semi-finals. But there's something hidden. Her story goes far beyond what viewers witnessed on their screens. Her breakthrough performance came after overcoming major obstacles, and till date, she's still overcoming more. What could that be? It's time to uncover Stacey's hidden story. In this video, we'll reveal it all piece by piece. Come along. Early life struggles with speech. Stacey Leadbeatter's journey to the Britain's Got Talent stage was anything but smooth. She didn't just wake up one day, decide to sing in front of millions, and effortlessly glide onto the stage. No, she had to fight for it. Fight against something that made even the simplest conversations feel like an uphill battle. Stacey had a speech impediment and a stutter that made speaking difficult and made singing even harder. And let's be real, when you want to be a singer, struggling with speech is like a cruel joke from the universe. But she didn't let it stop her. Oh no, she pushed through it, even when it felt impossible. Stacey had been stuttering for as long as she could remember. Growing up, every sentence felt like an obstacle course, every word a battle. Now, it wasn't just about struggling to get words out. It was about how other people reacted to it. The confused looks, the impatience, the interruptions, people finishing her sentences for her, assuming she just couldn't get her thoughts together. And the worst part? The teasing. Because let's be honest, kids can be brutal. Research even backs this up, that kids with speech difficulties are almost twice as likely to be bullied as their peers. And Stacey lived this reality every single day. School was no safe haven either. If anything, it was a battlefield. That was Stacey's daily life. Did you ever watch a talent show and feel like there's so much more to the story than what they show on TV? Well, Stacey Leadbeatter's journey on Britain's Got Talent might just be one of those cases. What really happened behind the scenes? Stick with me, because by the time we reach the end, you might see her entire journey in a completely different light. Stacey endured a lot growing up. The other kids would mimic her stutter, laugh when she tried to speak, and make her feel like she didn't belong. She wasn't the popular girl, not by a long shot. And even though teachers sometimes stepped in, there's only so much they can do. The damage was already done. And bullying? It doesn't just stay in the moment, it lingers. It plants seeds of self-doubt that grow into something much bigger. It chips away at confidence in ways that last for years, sometimes forever. And then there was the singing. Now, here's the thing. People with speech impediments often find that their struggles don't disappear when they sing. Stacey wasn't an exception. Her stutter didn't just show up in conversations. It followed her into her music. Stacey remembers looking at old recordings of herself from 4 or 5 years ago and cringing because, in her words, "You couldn't actually understand properly what I was singing due to the severity of speech impediments." That had to be tough. Because when you love something, when it's the thing that gives you joy and purpose, but it's also the thing that reminds you of your struggles, that's heartbreaking. And it didn't just stop at her singing. The way she saw herself, the way she interacted with the world, it was all shaped by her speech struggles. People who stutter often withdraw from social situations because, honestly, it's exhausting to constantly worry about how you'll sound. Stacey wasn't an exception. She avoided conversations, group activities, and even moments where she could have let her talent shine. She turned down opportunities to sing at weddings and parties, making excuses because she just didn't have the confidence. And let's be real, confidence is everything when it comes to performing. If you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect a crowd to? But Stacey's challenges weren't just limited to her stutter or the way people treated her because of it. Life had a few more curveballs to throw. She became a single mother when her daughter was just a year old, and relationships? They weren't exactly kind to her either. Unfortunately, the men weren't so kind to me, she admitted, which says a lot without saying too much. When you've been through so much already, facing struggles with your voice, your confidence, your sense of self, the last thing you need is people making you feel even smaller. But Stacey? She didn't let that define her. She focused on what mattered, her daughter, her growth, her music. And that's where her true strength shined. Because instead of letting all of these struggles push her down, she used them as stepping stones. She sought speech therapy, something that takes an incredible amount of patience and effort. Speech patterns are stubborn. Without constant practice, they can slip back into old habits. But she was determined. She didn't just want to improve, she needed to. Not just for herself, but for the little girl watching her, learning from her, looking up to her. And then came Britain's Got Talent, the very place where people's voices need to be their strongest, where every single word matters. Stacey walked onto that stage carrying every challenge she had ever faced, every cruel laugh from classmates, every time she second-guessed herself, every moment she had felt like she wasn't enough. And yet, she stood there anyway. That moment wasn't just about singing. It was about proving to herself that she could do it. It was about showing her daughter that no obstacle, no matter how big, has the power to stop you unless you let it. It was about looking back at all the people who doubted her, who laughed at her, who made her feel like her voice didn't matter, and saying, "Watch me now." Stacey Leadbeatter's story is proof that struggles don't define us. How we rise from them does. And she rose higher than even she probably ever imagined. Life before BGT. Stacey Leadbeatter's story wasn't the kind that screamed for attention. It didn't come with flashy headlines or dramatic twists, at least not at first. No, her story was the kind that simmered quietly in the background, unfolding in small, everyday moments that most people would overlook. It played out in the aisles of a Booth supermarket, in the soft hum of a cafe where she worked, and in the unspoken dreams she tucked away between shifts. She wasn't trying to be extraordinary. She was just trying to get through life, one day at a time. But isn't it funny how life has a way of nudging people toward their destiny, even when they try to resist it? At work, Stacey was just another friendly face behind the counter, the one making sure customers got their coffee and meals with a warm smile. No one could have guessed that the same woman quietly roasting chickens had a voice powerful enough to shake an auditorium. When customers playfully suggested she should sing at their weddings or parties, she'd brush it off with a polite excuse. Something about not having the right equipment or being too busy. But deep down, it wasn't about equipment or time. It was about fear. A fear so strong it had kept her voice locked away for years. Because what if she stepped up and people didn't like what they heard? What if she wasn't as good as she secretly hoped she was? What if she failed? She had only sung in public once before, in a small pub for about 50 people. And even that had taken every ounce of courage she had. The thought of stepping onto a stage like Britain's Got Talent, with the entire country watching, was almost unimaginable. But isn't it amazing how people can spend years hiding from their own potential, only to be forced into the spotlight when they least expect it? Outside of work, Stacey had another, even more important role. She was a mother. And if there was one thing she took seriously, it was making sure her daughter, Erilyn, had the best life possible. But being a single mother? That was no small task. It meant juggling bills, work, and childcare all on her own. It meant being both the provider and the nurturer, the protector and the playmate. It meant carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders while still making sure Erilyn never felt the burden. Her journey as a solo parent started when her relationship with Erilyn's father ended shortly after their daughter turned 1. And if that wasn't tough enough, she found herself in relationships afterward that weren't exactly kind to her. It was a pattern she didn't like to talk about much, but it left its mark. The kind of mark that made her more cautious, more protective of her heart, but also somehow stronger. She had every reason to be bitter, to give up on love, on dreams, on herself. But she didn't. Instead, she channeled everything into being the best mom she could be. And in those quiet moments at home, when it was just her and Erilyn, music became their thing. They would sing together, especially Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. It was their little tradition, their way of escaping the world for a few minutes. But 2023 was a tough year, maybe one of the toughest. I had some personal things going on. I just didn't deal with them very well, and I was in a bad place, she admitted. And if you've ever been in that kind of place, the kind where everything feels heavy, where even the smallest tasks feel impossible, then you know how hard it is to climb out. But somehow, she did. And standing at the center of her strength was Erilyn. She's everything to me. She's my little biggest fan, Stacey said, her voice thick with emotion. Because isn't it crazy how sometimes the people we think we're supposed to take care of end up saving us instead? Juggling single motherhood with her cafe job took a kind of resilience that most people never saw. The early mornings, the late nights, the exhaustion of doing it all alone. She handled it because she had to. There was no other choice. But through it all, there was something inside her that refused to die. A tiny spark, waiting for the right moment to turn into a flame. And that moment came in the form of a golden buzzer. When Stacey finally stepped onto the BGT stage, she wasn't just facing an audience. She was facing every fear, every doubt, every moment she had spent telling herself she wasn't good enough. She wasn't just singing. She was proving something to herself, to her daughter, to everyone who had ever doubted her. And as her voice filled the room, something magical happened. The world finally saw what had been there all along. A woman who had been quietly extraordinary this whole time. It's amazing how some of the strongest people are the ones who never even realize how strong they are. Stacey's story wasn't about overnight success or instant fame. It was about resilience, about quiet strength, about finally stepping into the light after spending years in the shadows. Stacey Leadbeatter was one of those performers who seemed destined for success. But what if I told you that her BGT journey wasn't as simple as it looked on screen? What if the real story was a little more complicated, a little more surprising, and maybe even a little more unfair? What did the cameras conveniently leave out? And what happened to her after the show that you probably never heard about? Stick with me because we're about to uncover everything that Britain's Got Talent didn't want you to know about Stacey Leadbeatter. Behind the BGT audition. Stacey Leadbeatter's life completely changed the moment she stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. And let's be real, walking onto that stage is no joke. Millions of eyes watching, cameras everywhere, the weight of a lifetime of dreams resting on that one moment. It's enough to make anyone's hands shake. But for Stacey, it was even bigger than that. This wasn't just about singing. This was about proving something to herself and the world. It was about showing that the girl who once struggled to make herself understood could now command a stage with a voice that left people speechless. And let's not forget, she wasn't just good. She was golden buzzer good. That kind of performance doesn't just happen overnight. It took months, no years, of dedication, discipline, and pushing through moments of doubt to get there. Her journey to that stage was anything but easy. Stacey's preparation went way beyond just picking a song and practicing it a few times. She had to condition her voice daily, making sure her speech impediment didn't creep back in. Can you imagine working so hard to improve something, only to know that if you don't stay consistent, you might start slipping backward? That's the kind of pressure Stacey was under. She had a strict routine, speech therapy exercises, vocal training, breathing techniques, all designed to keep her voice in peak condition. If I don't do certain exercises for, say, a couple of weeks, I will start to revert back to how I was, she admitted. That's why she never let a day go by without working on her voice. Some people warm up their voices before a performance. Stacey had to warm up her entire way of speaking every single day. And let's not even start on the confidence factor. Stacey had never been the kind of person to jump at performance opportunities. She had turned down singing at weddings and parties, not because she didn't love music, but because putting herself in front of an audience was terrifying. The biggest crowd she had ever sung for before BGT, a local pub. Now she was about to stand in front of Simon Cowell, a studio audience, and millions watching at home. No pressure, right? But she wasn't about to let fear stop her. She worked on her stage presence, reminding herself over and over that she deserved to be there. Now, let's talk about the song choice. Because let's be honest, picking the right song can make or break a performance. Stacey went with Run, not just any version, but the Leona Lewis one. Why? Because it was hard. Because it gave her the chance to really show what her voice could do. Because the lyrics were clear and powerful, letting her prove just how much she had improved. And wow, did it pay off? Even Simon Cowell, who's basically heard it all, was blown away. "That's a really difficult song to sing, and you absolutely nailed it," he told her. Imagine hearing that from Simon, the guy who doesn't give out compliments for free. Stacey had spent her whole life watching him on TV, wondering if she'd ever get the chance to impress him. And now here he was, telling her she crushed it. And then, the moment. The one that every contestant dreams of, but so few actually experience. KSI, sitting at the judges' panel, couldn't hold back. He slammed that golden buzzer, sending Stacey straight to the semifinals. Can you even imagine what that felt like? 1 second, you're standing there, trying to catch your breath, and the next, golden confetti is falling around you. The audience is on their feet, and your life is forever changed. KSI summed it up perfectly. The voice that came out of your mouth, "I was in awe. I just had to press that golden buzzer." The crowd agreed. They weren't just clapping, they were roaring. Some even said her voice got stronger as the song went on. Someone in the audience shouted that she had literally defied gravity with that vocal performance. And honestly, they weren't wrong. But here's the thing. Stacey's performance wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It wasn't just about technique or vocal control. It was about a transformation years in the making. She had gone from struggling to make her words clear to delivering a flawless, emotional powerhouse performance in front of millions. That standing ovation from the judges? That wasn't just applause. That was validation. That was the world telling her, "We see you, we hear you, and you are phenomenal." Now, the big question. What's next? Stacey's keeping her semi-final performance under wraps, but she's promised it's going to be even bigger and better. And after seeing what she did in the auditions, can you even imagine what she has planned? One thing's for sure, this girl isn't slowing down. She has spent years preparing for this moment, not just with vocal training, but with speech therapy, confidence building, and sheer determination. And now, all of that hard work is paying off. The judges believe in her. The audience believes in her. And most importantly, she believes in herself. And really, isn't that the most powerful thing of all? What if I told you that what you didn't see on Britain's Got Talent is even more interesting than what you did see? Stacey Leadbeatter's audition was unforgettable. Her journey was inspiring, and her talent was undeniable. But let's be honest, reality shows don't always show us the whole reality, do they? Stay with me till the end, because once we unpack everything Britain's Got Talent left out, you might never look at her story the same way again. Come along. Personal life transformation. Stacey Leadbeatter's life took the kind of turn that felt surreal, and it happened at the perfect time. That's exactly what summed up the life of Stacey in the first quarter of 2025. Not only did she have her golden buzzer moment on Britain's Got Talent, but she also found love in the most beautiful, full-circle kind of way. And not just any love, the kind that had been waiting in the wings all along, quietly biding its time until the stars finally aligned. Let's rewind a little to 2024. Stacey and Richard had known each other for years, since they were teenagers actually. They were close and always had a special bond, but life, as it often does, led them down different roads. They dated other people, built separate lives, and never once crossed the line into romance. But you know that feeling when you just know someone is meant to be in your life in a bigger way? That's exactly what had been sitting between them all those years. Unspoken, but very much there. Stacey put it perfectly when she said, "We've always been with other people, but had that connection there and never acted on it. And then life did what life does best. It surprised them. They both found themselves single at the same time. And suddenly, the what if that had always lingered in the background was right there in front of them, asking to be explored. So, they did something simple but life-changing. They met up. And as soon as they did, it was obvious. That connection? Still there, stronger than ever. We decided to meet up to see if that connection's still there, and it clearly is, Stacey shared, practically glowing with happiness. Isn't that the best kind of love story? The one that doesn't need to be forced or overcomplicated because it was always meant to be? Richard wasn't just her partner in love. He became her #1 fan, her rock, the person who saw her talent and celebrated it just as much as she did. He adored her voice, and Stacey loved that about him. He's the proudest fiancé. He'll listen to me sing all the time, and we love a karaoke night, she shared. And let's be honest, that's the dream, right? Finding someone who not only loves you, but also loves the things that make you, you. Now, Richard is a man who knows how to make a moment count. He could have proposed in any way, some fancy dinner or a romantic getaway, but he chose his own birthday party to pop the question, surrounded by his children and their families. There's something so beautiful about that. It wasn't just a proposal, it was a merging of two lives, two families, in the most natural and loving way possible. And just like that, Stacey's life took another incredible turn. But here's the thing. Just because they were head over heels in love didn't mean they felt the need to rush down the aisle. They decided to enjoy the engagement, take their time, and really soak in this chapter of their lives before stepping into the next one. Their wedding date? 2027. Plenty of time to build their foundation even stronger, to grow together not just as a couple, but as individuals. And honestly, isn't that the smartest way to do it? Too many people rush into marriage without giving themselves time to be engaged, to enjoy the process, and to live in that moment before moving on to the next big thing. And talk about perfect timing, her engagement happened right alongside her Britain's Got Talent success. Imagine that. 1 minute she's standing on that stage, hearing that golden buzzer, realizing that her dreams are literally unfolding before her eyes. The next, she's celebrating the love of her life. It was like the universe had looked at her and said, "All right, Stacey, you've been through enough. Here's all the happiness you've been waiting for. Take it all at once." Even Stacey herself admitted it felt unreal. Everything happened at once. It was so surreal. It's like an outer body experience, she said, still wrapping her head around it. And who could blame her? How often do love and career success align so perfectly like that? And through it all, Richard was right there beside her. When she watched her golden buzzer moment for the first time, it wasn't in some big, flashy setting. No cameras, no huge party, just her at home with her fiancé. And that says everything about their relationship. No matter how big life gets, no matter how many incredible things happen, at the end of the day, it's about the little moments, the quiet ones, the ones where it's just the two of you experiencing something extraordinary together. Stacey's life has been revealed to be one of those rare stories that remind us how unpredictable and beautiful life can be. 1 year, she was navigating single motherhood, wondering what the future had in store for her. The next, she was falling in love with someone who had been there all along and stepping into the biggest career moment of her life. It's proof that sometimes what's meant for us finds its way to us, no matter how long it takes. They all have a funny way of showing up exactly when we least expect them, but exactly when we're ready for them. Support system. As we've seen and heard, Stacey Leadbeatter's journey to becoming a Golden Buzzer recipient on Britain's Got Talent wasn't just about talent. It was about love, resilience, and the people who stood by her through thick and thin. Because let's be real, dreams don't just happen overnight, do they? They need nurturing, support, and sometimes just the right person telling you, "You've got this." And for Stacey, that unwavering voice of encouragement came from her daughter, Erilyn, her rock, her biggest fan, and quite honestly, the little force of nature who helped her believe in herself again. Now, if you think about it, 10-year-old Erilyn isn't just a daughter. She's Stacey's best friend in the truest sense. The two of them have been inseparable since the very beginning, weathering life's storms together, just the two of them against the world. Stacey had split from Erilyn's father when her baby girl was only 1 year old, and from that moment on, they became a unit bound together by love, music, and an unbreakable mother and daughter bond. And let's talk about their song for a second, because doesn't every duo have that song? For them, it's Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You," a track so deeply embedded in their story that it feels like the soundtrack to their lives. It's the song that turns their little duets into magic, the song that makes them look at each other with knowing smiles as if saying, "We got this." Stacey has never been shy about admitting just how much Erilyn means to her. "She's everything to me. She's my little biggest fan," she once said. And honestly, can you think of a more touching way to describe a child's love? It's not just about cheering from the sidelines. It's about being the person who lifts you up when you're about to fall, who reminds you why you started this journey in the first place. And let's not pretend that journey was always easy. 2023 in particular was a tough year for Stacey. Personal struggles had her questioning everything, doubting herself, wondering if she should even keep going. But Erilyn? She never wavered. She stood by her mother, pushing her forward, reminding her why she had to keep singing. When the world felt dark, their music became a lifeline. But here's the thing. Sometimes, life surprises you with more love than you ever thought possible. Enter Richard, Stacey's fiancé, the man who not only fell in love with her, but also with the music inside her. And let's be honest, isn't it the best feeling when someone not only loves you, but sees you for who you truly are? Richard isn't just a supportive partner, he's her loudest cheerleader. Whether it's joining her for karaoke nights or sitting through what must be a million practice runs of the same song, he's there. "He'll listen to me sing all the time," Stacey shared, "and that kind of patience? That's real love." And it's not just him. His entire family has embraced Stacey's dreams, making her feel like she's not just gaining a husband, but an entire extended support system that wants to see her win. And speaking of winning, let's talk about that Britain's Got Talent moment. Because wow, what a moment. When she stepped onto that stage singing Snow Patrol's Run, it wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about years of struggle, growth, and finding the courage to finally own her talent. And when that golden buzzer hit, oh, it wasn't just about Stacey winning. It was about everyone who had ever stood by her. Richard and Stacey watched the moment unfold at home together, soaking in the sheer joy of it all. And as if life wasn't already giving Stacey her fairy tale ending, Richard's proposal was the cherry on top. And let me tell you, this man knows how to make a moment count. He didn't just pop the question on any random day. He chose his birthday, surrounded by family and their children, making it clear that this wasn't just about marrying Stacey. It was about welcoming her, Erilyn, and their shared dreams into his life permanently. If that's not love, what is? With a wedding planned for 2027, Stacey's story isn't just about a woman who found success. It's about a woman who found her voice, her confidence, and a love that amplified it all. Music has always been the thread that tied her life together, from singing with Erilyn to belting out tunes at karaoke with Richard. And honestly, that's not going to change. Their life together will always have a soundtrack, one filled with duets, laughter, and late-night sing-alongs that keep their hearts full. Because at the end of the day, talent is amazing. But having people who truly believe in you, that's what makes dreams come true. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.